it is my honor to welcome to the podium retired Beverly Hills Fire Department Fire Chief Tim Scranton. Good afternoon. It's great to see so many friends. It's been years since I've been back here. Mr. Mayor, City Council. 20 years ago, 4 plane crashes led to the deaths of nearly 3,000 innocent victims in less than an hour and 20 minutes, with more than 10,000 more that have been diagnosed or died from 9/11 related cancers. It's a moment when we as a nation made the decision to focus on what brings us together as a country rather than what tears us apart. And we did. We went from being terrorized and incapacitated to a safe and free society again. But we also committed to never forget those who were lost. So to keep that pledge, a group of passionate and patriotic citizens came together to create what you see behind me, the Beverly Hills 9/11 Memorial Garden. This monument was intended to forever honor, respect, and remember the victims and rescuers and heroes who lost their lives on September 11, 2001. Chief Barton asked if I'd come and speak a little about how this memorial came to be, so I'll try and convey that story and mention several people who were instrumental in making this memorial a reality. For years I wanted to get a piece of steel from the World Trade Center, but it was just impossible to do so. Then out of the blue, I received a phone call from Ann Kellogg, who was part of the Maple Center at the time. She said she had a friend of a friend who knew somebody that could give me a phone number to get in touch with the right person that would get us a piece of steel. I sought approval from Rod Wood, my city manager, who said, and I quote, "Do it." I asked my executive assistant, Michael Leonson, to help with the extremely complex process of dealing with the Port Authority. It was just a paperwork nightmare, but Mike, with his calm, ex-military demeanor, was instrumental in completing the application and transfer process. Once we finally got through the vetting, I was offered the opportunity to actually make a selection from various artifacts that they had. And this is the piece that you see behind us. Since the World Trade Center was a crime scene, we had to wait several more months for a judge to issue a court order, and we were finally approved to seize the metal. Now we needed some funds to transport the artifact from New York City to Beverly Hills, so I asked Beverly Hills Rotary President, Mitch Dawson, if he would help us. And he approved the request, and Beverly Hills Rotary became our first partners in this project. I asked Joe Match to lead a team of city employees to help with the construction of the memorial. The concept was to build it in our off-duty time, all by volunteers. And we had members from every city department who wanted to volunteer and be part of this project. But we quickly outgrew that concept. Police officer Jim Ply created design that you see here tonight. Jim introduced us to Jim introduced Aida Matty to the project, who's an architect and a designer, and her office provided the drawings. Geddes Pateras and his firm created the architectural and engineering plans, and that's how this project went. Just like dominoes, from one to another, making connections and moving forward. As the venture moved along, it grew vastly in size, so we needed to create a committee. So we started with Judy Fenton, who's involved in just about everything in the city. Linda Briskman, Mitch Dawson, Lillian Raffel, Brian Rosenstein, Chief of Police Dave Snowden, Deputy Chief Joe Match, Michael Leonson, Jennifer Castellanos, Geddes Pateras, Rudy Sully, Jim Ply, Brad Burlingame, and Judy Marks, who, by the way, is on the board of directors of Schnitzer Steel, who completed the steel reclamation at the World Trade Center site. And that's the same company who donated the steel that we used in the construction for this memorial. And they were the ones that made this memorial a reality. When we started fundraising, one idea was to sell the granite benches you see there to sponsors for $10,000 apiece. Aida Matty contacted her friends Gilbert and Rose Shiguri. She explained to them that we were trying to do and showed them the plans, and they asked, well, how many benches do you have to sell? And Aida said, well, hopefully we can find 10 sponsors, and that would get us going on the construction costs. They said, okay, we'll take all 10. And they wrote a check for $100,000, just like that. And then they asked, how much do we need for the Twin Towers? and they wrote another very generous check for the project. I was so happy and thankful for their contribution, but not long after that, Mr. Shiguri wrote me a letter and in part said this: "We must preserve the legacy of the 9/11 victims. I am indeed gratified and honored to be part of this memorial occasion. I'd like to thank our dear friend Aida for involving us. We're not American citizens nor permanent residents, but we profoundly feel that we owe the United States of America and the American people a great deal of debt for all of their duties to fight terrorism and soothe our agitated world. When you pray, ask God to help keep America strong to lead the world. The true legacy of that September day lies in our unconditional embrace and freedom and justice. God bless America, Gilbert Shiguri." It was that generous, charitable, and patriotic spirit that continued throughout this project. We had several contractors who'd come in, do their work, and not accept payment. They just wanted to be part and to help with this memorial. Reggie Sully served for 5 months as the construction superintendent for free. Jen and Emilio hosted and managed the 9/11 website. Judy and Lynn and Mitch and Lily and Brian and Jeannie